Russell Wilson went on an absolute tirade in his first media session since getting benched, and he called out the Broncos directly. So he basically confirmed everything that was said in previous reports over the last couple of weeks, that the Broncos approached him during the bye week right after they had beaten the Kansas City Chiefs 24-9 to improve to 3-5 on the season. They approached him and asked him to defer the injury guarantees on his contract from the 2025 season to the 2025 offseason by 1 year. Russell Wilson was taken aback by that request, and here's what he told the local media in his media session today. They came up to me during the bye week and beginning of the bye week, Monday or Tuesday. They told me if I didn't change my contract, my injury guarantee, that I'd be benched for the rest of the year. I was definitely disappointed about it. It was a process for the whole bye week. We had just come off beating the Chiefs. I was excited for us fighting for the playoffs and getting on a hot streak. I was definitely surprised. This information comes courtesy of Chris Thomason of the Denver Gazette. A source then told Thomason that the Broncos wanted Wilson to then push his $37 million contract guarantee for 2025 about a year back to March of 2025. What that would have done, the Broncos, if Russell Wilson is on the roster the fourth day of the 2024 league year, that $37 million becomes guaranteed. They wanted him to push that back so that way they wouldn't have to make a decision on Russ both for 2024 and 2025. They wanted to take things on sort of a year-to-year basis. Russell Wilson makes it seem like the Broncos wanted him to rescind it altogether as opposed to just push it back, or at least that's kind of how he makes it seem like in his press conference. I personally feel like either way, though, it would not have been beneficial for Russell Wilson to do that. Football is a violent sport. It's a rough contact sport. Any given down could be your last in the NFL. Nothing is guaranteed in that league. There's a reason why it stands for not for long, NFL. It's because you could get injured at any given time, and Russell Wilson didn't want to go the entirety of the 2024 season and part of the 2023 season, the final 9 games, without some injury protections in the event that he went down, because let's just be honest, Russell Wilson has suffered some injuries throughout the course of his career. I think a major contributing factor for his poor 2022 season, beside of course Nathaniel Hackett, was he was not healthy. Between hamstring injuries and shoulder injuries, he was plagued pretty much the entire year, and then a concussion too. So Russell Wilson, you can't blame him for not wanting to defer those injury guarantees. It's of no benefit for the player to do that. So the Broncos were like, okay, you made the best decision for you. We're going to make the best decision for us, and we're going to sit you. Russell Wilson, yes, he has bounced back in comparison to his 2022 season, but his level of play is nowhere close to what the Broncos traded for, and you have to peel beyond the raw stats on this one, and you're basing it off of film, you're basing it off of PFF advanced stats, you're basing it off of other advanced metrics that are telling you that Russell Wilson is about a 20th ranked quarterback in the NFL, and he's certainly still a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, but the Broncos are trying to find their franchise quarterback that can lead them into the future for the next 10 plus years. And Russell Wilson, with his age, clearly is not going to be that guy. And this is the one exit avenue that they have to get out of this contract. Now, Sean Payton cannot exactly come and say that out loud to the media. Otherwise, that would just open up a can of investigative worms that he does not want to open. So, Russell Wilson is still active as the backup. That is the only reason why he's still active as the backup. That makes sense to me now that I think about it like that. Otherwise, the Broncos would have completely deactivated Russ and made Ben DiNucci the backup. Russell actually says that he still hopes that his future is in Denver. I hope it's here. I hope that it's here for a long time. I hope we get some more silverware in the front hallway, we get some more championships, and if it's not here, then I'm prepared to do that somewhere else. But I hope it's here. I really genuinely do mean that. I brought my family here and everything else. I think Russ is saying that because he's still holding out hope the Broncos will honor their contract, but it's not going to happen, man. Russ is saying all the right things here, but he is preparing to move forward to another team, to another city next year. And there are a handful of teams out there that absolutely would want Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. I can think of teams like the Washington Commanders, maybe even the Pittsburgh Steelers would be interested in Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. But right now, Russ's future definitely seems like it is outside of Denver. And Russ said it definitely hurt. It was a low blow when the Broncos threatened to bench him. But I'm curious if that's just the way he interpreted it, or if the Broncos were actually making active threats to bench him. If they were, that's not exactly a great look. I feel like maybe they were using it as like a leverage tactic. Because let's just be honest, sports teams use leverage when they have it. That's a rude part of this business that not a lot of people want to talk about, but it is the reality of the NFL. The NFL is a business. And ultimately, Russell Wilson didn't get benched until the Broncos were basically out of the playoff picture, barring very unrealistic outcomes. I mean, they're still mathematically alive, but they're dependent on the Kansas City Chiefs losing out, them winning out, or getting in on the wild card side, as a bunch of other crazy scenarios would have to happen for that to happen. So the Broncos waited until Russell Wilson, or they waited until they were out of the playoffs to bench Russell Wilson. So you can't even really say that the Broncos, I mean, they didn't follow through with what they were going to do until they basically had to, when it was fully decided that they could no longer move forward with Russell Wilson. I understand that Sean Payton maybe taking subtle jabs at Russ through the media can be perceived as just a low blow, but I think the Broncos really handled this the right way. They came into this season when Sean Payton was hired. Ownership was like, all right, present your plan for how you're going to improve Russell Wilson's play from last season. And Sean Payton did that. Pretty much every single metric you look at, film and stats, Russell Wilson is a much improved player from last year. But he's also not a player that's going to win you a championship. And the Broncos, realizing this, know that this is their only chance to get out of their contract. They are executing that plan. And this was always the plan from the beginning. If Russell Wilson isn't resurrected to basically 2015 through 2020 level Russell Wilson, then no matter how much better he's playing, it's not enough to justify how much the Broncos are paying him. And unless they want to be on the hook for all kinds of money in all of these future years, this is their one chance to get out of this deal. It's nothing personal. I don't think Sean Payton has a personal vendetta against Russell Wilson. I think that they really genuinely still like each other as human beings, but from a business perspective, it's not a good working relationship. Sean Payton is a guy who wants his quarterback to be able to process quickly at the line of scrimmage, get the ball out quickly over the middle of the field, which Russell Wilson is not great at doing. He's much better in chaos. He's much better throwing outside the numbers than inside the numbers. He's much better, obviously, throwing deep balls and just scrambling and making plays happen. And that's not the kind of quarterback that Sean Payton wants. Sean Payton was not handpicked. He didn't handpick Russell Wilson. He handpicked the Denver Broncos. Quite frankly, the Broncos, or Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they had no connection. There was no reason for the Broncos to move forward with Russell Wilson if he's not Sean Payton's guy, and he's clearly not Sean Payton's guy. So that's where the Broncos stand right now. I personally feel like they handled this about as well as they could, despite a lot of narratives from the outside media.